just how bad it could be before it was actually released to the public in, I guess, December 2006. And surprisingly, about a month ago, I was in somebody's office on client side, and sure enough, I see SharePoint Team Services sitting still in the shrink wrap, sitting on someone's desk. I just kind of chuckled because I'm thinking, here's the IT department, and they've got STS version 1 just sitting there. But the time that I actually got to play with STS was very limited. I was a recent college grad and got to play with it and just kind of went, what is this? Why would I ever play with this? Didn't really see the value in it, but it's found a considerable way. What have I seen? Well, working for Booz Allen, I've seen the small, the big, the good, the dirty, the ugly. Recently, I guess I've been working in pretty large architecture systems where it would be 100,000 users, 500,000 users. So some of the considerations you end up going into with that have been kind of unnerving at times when you start talking to Microsoft and you say, hey, can your software actually support this? And they say, well, we can do the enterprise. And you say, but can we do 1 million users? You say, well, we think so. So I've seen a lot here and there. What this talk is really about, though, is just kind of, as you're going in and looking at how you're doing your implementations of SharePoint, just the things you really need to think about, things you really need to kind of step into. And a lot of the time, you'll sit down and a client will say, hey, I want to put SharePoint up. I've got 5,000 users, and I want to use document management. Or they won't even say that. They'll just say, we've got 5,000 users. And a lot of people will say, oh, okay, 5,000 users. Pull up the capacity plating tool. Oh, okay, so this is the form you need. Just hand it over. 3 months later, hey, things aren't working the way they're supposed to be. So, kind of a pain in the butt, and you end up having to go back and actually start figuring out what does that taxonomy look like? What does that logic architecture look like? How do things actually fit? So, I don't know, for any of you guys, did you go to Tech Ed? Maybe, maybe not. No? Okay, so Tech Ed was 2 weeks ago, I think. Out in LA. I didn't get to go either. I was kind of bummed. But a couple buddies, Shane Young and Todd Clint, they put a webcast out there called What Could Go Wrong? They kind of went through some of the different administrative SharePoint things. And definitely seeing the two of them kind of go back and forth made me laugh because they were talking about, hey, you never ever want to do this with your admin account. You never want to do this with SQL Server. Well, what could go wrong with logical architectures? I started thinking to myself. Well, it was skipped. It happens. You end up with site collections popping up left and right. I know many of you have probably seen this in any of the systems you've worked in. Permissions end up being a mess. All of a sudden you start wondering yourself, where my admin access go? Yesterday I was a site owner. I could go through, hide documents from my users. Today, seems to be gone. Eric decided he wanted to re-inherit. A little bit of a problem. Information is kind of dispersed everywhere because there was no planning that went into it. No one really said, here's what our taxonomy is going to be. Here's what our information flow is going to be. And search doesn't seem to be working right because I can't differentiate between 6 copies of the same document. Which one's authoritative? So, what could go wrong? How do we prevent that? Well, we start thinking, what is your actual system vision? I know many of you have seen the pinwheel from Microsoft. I kind of like to display it this way for capabilities. So, thinking through what is your real vision? Are you looking for collaboration, portals, enterprise search, content management? Or are you looking more for something where you've got like an application built on top of SharePoint? I've seen some pretty crazy things where someone will go out and develop an application, slide it into the layouts folder, create a web application for it, expose it. And people are like, oh, SharePoint has this really cool functionality. And yeah, it does, but that's not SharePoint. It's somebody's .NET application they created. So, what is your true vision? What are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to go down the path of just having a collaboration system? Are you trying to go down the path of just having web content management? Obviously, off the bat, you might say, well, does that really matter? Does it really matter if I'm just trying to have portals and contact information available? Or am I trying to actually have like web content management to replace my public-facing website? Obviously, to the executive, they're probably just going to say, make it happen. For the engineers that are actually having to go and take this and do this, probably want to think about it and start working your way through it and making sure that your implementation meets this. I'm going to stop, but out of curiosity, how many of you guys would say you're developers? Okay, so .NET developers or SharePoint Designer developers?
Both.
What about infrastructure side of things? Administrator? Okay. For you guys that do the administration side, how usually do you kind of gain those requirements? Is it, hey, we need these sites built out, or hey, we need these applications built out?
From a large level, it can come a number of ways. The requirements could already be gathered, and you just have to take what's there and work with that. It can be on a direct level where someone says, well, we need a certain functionality to deliver, so it ranges.
Okay. I guess from what I've kind of seen, a lot of the time, it'll be, hey, we want business intelligence. And it's like, oh, okay. Cool, we can give that to you. It's all services line. Go use it. And the communication as to how they actually really want to use it needs to get planned out, get skipped. Somewhat of a pain in the butt. But, you know, what is it your vision is going to look like? What's the context of your SharePoint system? Are you sitting, for me in the government world, I end up sitting in a lot of these places where we're looking on a special network that has to have a special crypto card that goes with it, or a smart card or something. Is that one of your requirements to make sure you're planning for it? Are you only dealing with users that are coming from your internal network? Are you users, anonymous users, because you're using SharePoint for a sale system? Hawaiian Airlines, I don't know if you guys have gone and checked that out, but it's SharePoint driven, kind of crazy. Another thing, what's your SharePoint system going to look like? You need to roll up that data. So Shadid mentioned, you might have something where they say, hey, here's what we want our site collections to look like. Here's what we want our navigation to look like. And you're like, oh, that's great. I can roll up all my data into that. And then you get a requirement that says, oh, by the way, I need everything partitioned out especially so that people can't get into my data. I want to be able to only see this specific user group or set of users in this site collection. And you say, oh, wait, you just said the site collection word. Now we're partitioned. I can't share that data unless I want to go out and get courseworks and start doing things across the wall, so to speak. Likewise, do I want to reutilize those SharePoint groups? Is that a part of my vision? Do I want to have things where my executives can easily, quickly go out and start pulling already pre-created groups? I know, I think it was 2 days ago, somebody said, hey, I want to have a site that has the exact same permissions of this other thing. And I went, oh, man, it's going to take forever to recreate. And they went, wait, it's a subsite. Okay, cool. I've already got these site groups over. I can just quickly pull them in. Everything will work nicely. Vision-wise, do I want to have workflow? Am I highly workflow-driven? One of the biggest things that comes up government side of the world, and probably the commercial side as well, is task management. Where is a certain task order? Where is something in the logistics chain? SharePoint in a box, with SharePoint Designer, you might be able to do that. It would be kind of difficult and interesting. But as a part of that, are you going to go out and say, hey, we need to pick up K2, we need to go pick up Terrace, we need to go pick up Intex. How does that fit into your overall vision? How does the end user see that? And then lastly, considering the context of your actual environment. Are you constrained to 2 servers and 500 gigabytes of disk space? Are you building into the cloud? Are you using Amazon EC2 with elastic storage? Are you using BPOS from Microsoft, which is pretty cool, but still in its infancy? All those things probably going to contribute into how you actually plan things out. So those considerations, trade-offs, compromises, all those different things, you're probably going to want to start documenting, figuring out, putting in a matrix, taking back to your boss, saying, hey, how do we rack and stack these things? What's the priority? Something to keep in mind, especially when you want to get out of that mindset of cookie cutter. Maybe cookie cutter SharePoint works. Maybe your vision for your SharePoint system is like 1-in-1 hosting, where you're basically getting a site